The sky cracks open with a roar, and lightning streaks across the darkened heavens, illuminating the earth below for a fleeting moment. Rain pours down like an unrelenting force, and the wind howls as if trying to speak in a language we cannot understand. For us, a thunderstorm might be a natural phenomenon, something to check off the weather app or take cover from. But for the ancient world, it was something far more profound, a message from the gods, a sign of divine power, or even a warning of impending doom. Thunder wasn't just thunder, it was the voice of Zeus. A flood wasn't just water, it was the wrath of Poseidon, and an earthquake, that was the earth itself shaking under the footsteps of angry deities. Across cultures and continents, our ancestors looked to the skies, the seas, and the land, searching for answers to the chaos around them. They wove stories, myths to explain the unexplainable, giving meaning to the terrifying forces of nature. These tales weren't just entertainment, they were the foundation of entire belief systems, shaping how people lived, worshipped, and understood their place in the universe. Why did the Nile flood every year? What caused volcanoes to erupt? And who was responsible for the sun rising and setting each day? In this video, we'll journey through the myths of Greek, Norse, Hindu, and other ancient traditions to uncover how humanity's earliest storytellers made sense of natural disasters and catastrophic events. From the thunderbolts of Zeus to the world-ending serpent Jörmungandr, these stories reveal a universal truth. Our ancestors sought to find order in chaos, and in doing so, they left us a legacy of imagination, wisdom, and wonder. So let's dive into these ancient tales and explore how they shaped the way we see the world, and perhaps how they still resonate with us today. Long before science offered explanations for earthquakes, storms, and floods, ancient cultures turned to the divine to make sense of the chaos around them. In their eyes, natural disasters weren't random acts of nature. They were the deliberate work of gods and supernatural beings, powerful entities who could shape the world with a single gesture. Take Zeus, the king of the Greek gods, for example. When thunder roared across the sky or lightning split the earth, it wasn't just weather, it was Zeus wielding his thunderbolts with the might of a ruler. Similarly, in Norse mythology, Thor's hammer wasn't just a weapon. It was a force of nature itself, capable of summoning storms and shaking the heavens. These stories weren't just imaginative tales, they were survival tools, offering explanations for the inexplicable. But it wasn't just about explaining natural phenomena. These myths also revealed something deeper about how ancient societies viewed their gods. The deities weren't always benevolent protectors. They were often unpredictable, capable of both creation and destruction. One moment, they might bless the land with rain for a bountiful harvest. The next, they could unleash a flood to wipe out entire villages. This duality reflected the fragile balance of life in the ancient world, where survival depended on forces that were as mysterious as they were powerful. These myths also mirrored the fears and values of the societies that told them. If a god was angered, it was often because of human wrongdoing, a broken oath, a neglected sacrifice, or a challenge to divine authority. In this way, natural disasters became moral lessons, reminders that the gods were watching and that human actions had consequences. They weren't just stories. They were frameworks for understanding the world, reinforcing societal norms and offering a sense of order in the face of chaos. Flood myths are among the most widespread and enduring stories in human history, appearing in cultures across the globe. Take the biblical tale of Noah's Ark, for example, where a great deluge wipes out humanity, sparing only Noah and his family. Or consider the Mesopotamian Epic of Gilgamesh, where the hero Utnapishtim builds a massive boat to survive a world-destroying flood sent by the gods. Even in Hindu mythology, we find the story of Manu, who is warned by a fish about an impending flood and builds a vessel to save all living beings. these stories, though separated by geography and time, share striking similarities. At their core, they often revolve around themes of divine punishment and renewal, a cycle of destruction followed by rebirth. But what connects these tales? Many scholars believe they may have been inspired by real historical floods. Imagine ancient societies witnessing catastrophic floods that reshaped their landscapes and wiped out entire communities. It's not hard to see how such events could have been interpreted as acts of divine wrath. Yet, these myths also carried deeper meanings. They weren't just warnings about the power of the gods, they offered a sense of hope. By emphasizing survival and renewal, they reminded people that even in the face of devastation, life could begin anew. These stories served as moral lessons, teaching communities about humility, obedience, and the importance of living in harmony with the natural and divine order. Interestingly, while flood myths often focus on destruction, they also highlight humanity's resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. This duality of punishment and hope makes them powerful tools for understanding how ancient cultures made sense of the world around them. As we explore these myths, it's fascinating to see how they blend fact and fiction, transforming real events into timeless lessons. And while floods were one way ancient societies explained natural disasters, they weren't the only one. From earthquakes to volcanic eruptions, myths gave meaning to the chaos, offering explanations that were as much about the human spirit as they were about the forces of nature. In ancient cultures, the ground beneath their feet was more than just soil and rock. It was a canvas upon which the gods painted their wrath. Earthquakes, those sudden and terrifying tremors, were often interpreted as the direct actions of divine beings, a way for the heavens or the underworld to express their displeasure. Take Poseidon, for example, the powerful Greek god of the sea. Known for his volatile temper, Poseidon was said to wield his trident not only to control the oceans but to strike the earth itself, shaking the ground with his fury. This myth wasn't just a story, it was a way for ancient Greeks to make sense of the chaos around them, to attribute meaning to something so destructive and unpredictable. But the Greeks weren't alone in this belief. Across the world in Japan, earthquakes were tied to a very different, yet equally fascinating, creature, the giant catfish Namezu. According to legend, Namezu lived deep beneath the earth, and when it thrashed or moved, the ground above would tremble violently. The Japanese believed that the god Kashima used a massive stone to pin Namezu down, but when Kashima's focus wavered, the catfish would escape, causing earthquakes. This myth served as both an explanation and a cautionary tale, reminding people of the delicate balance between order and chaos. These stories weren't just about fear or superstition. They were coping mechanisms, ways for ancient societies to process the randomness of natural disasters. By personifying earthquakes as the actions of gods or creatures, people could find a sense of control in an uncontrollable world. They could pray, make offerings, or perform rituals to appease these beings, turning their anxiety into action. And speaking of creatures, while gods and catfish dominated many myths, animals often played a surprising role in how ancient cultures explained the world around them. From the smallest insects to the mightiest beasts, the natural world was full of symbols and stories that helped people understand the mysteries of life. Animals have always held a powerful place in human imagination, especially when it comes to explaining the mysteries of the natural world. In myths across cultures, creatures often became symbols of the uncontrollable forces behind disasters. Take Namezu, the giant catfish of Japanese folklore. This massive fish nestled beneath the earth was believed to cause earthquakes when it thrashed. In Norse mythology, Jörmungandr, the serpent encircling the world, was said to create tidal waves with its movements. These animal figures weren't just random characters, they embodied chaos, unpredictability, and the raw power of nature. Through these stories, ancient cultures grappled with the duality of nature, its breathtaking beauty and its potential for destruction. These myths served as a reminder that humans are not always in control, and that the natural world operates on its own terms. And speaking of forces beyond human reach, many myths also turn to the skies, where cosmic battles between gods and monsters were believed to shape the fate of the earth. In the vast tapestry of ancient mythologies, natural disasters often took center stage as the dramatic consequences of cosmic battles. These stories weren't just thrilling tales of gods clashing. They were profound explanations for the chaos and destruction humanity witnessed in the natural world. Take, for instance, the Hindu myth of Indra and the demon Vritra. Vritra, a serpent-like creature, held the waters of the world hostage, plunging the earth into drought and despair. Indra, the god of rain and thunder, waged a fierce battle against this drought-causing foe, ultimately defeating him and releasing the life-giving waters. This wasn't just a story of victory, it was a metaphor for the eternal struggle between order and chaos, a theme echoed across countless cultures. In ancient Egypt, the sun god Ra faced his own cosmic adversary, Apep, the chaos serpent. Every night, as Ra sailed his solar bark through the underworld, Apep would attempt to devour him, threatening to plunge the world into eternal darkness. Ra's triumph over Apep symbolized the daily renewal of order over chaos, mirroring the cycles of sunrise and sunset. These myths weren't just about gods and monsters, they were deeply rooted in the human experience. They provided a framework for understanding the unpredictable and often terrifying forces of nature, from droughts and floods to earthquakes and storms. By personifying these events as battles between divine forces, ancient cultures found meaning in the chaos, seeing patterns and purpose where there might otherwise only be fear. What's fascinating is how these stories often included a moral dimension, a reminder that human actions could influence the gods' favor or wrath. In many myths, natural disasters weren't just random acts of nature. They were seen as divine retribution for human misdeeds, whether it was failing to honor the gods, breaking sacred laws, or succumbing to greed and arrogance. This belief in the interconnectedness of human behavior and natural events gave rise to rituals, sacrifices, and moral codes designed to appease the gods and maintain cosmic balance. These ancient narratives, though steeped in symbolism, still resonate today, offering timeless insights into how we make sense of the world's uncertainties and our place within it. Throughout history, countless myths have drawn a direct line between human actions and the wrath of nature. These stories often framed natural disasters as divine retribution, a way for the gods to punish humanity for moral failings or hubris. Take the Greek myth of Atlantis, for example. This advanced civilization, said to be a utopia of wealth and power, was allegedly submerged beneath the waves by the gods as punishment for its arrogance and corruption. The story serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of overreaching pride, a theme echoed in many ancient narratives. Similarly, the biblical account of Sodom and Gomorrah paints a vivid picture of destruction as divine judgment. These cities, infamous for their wickedness, were obliterated by fire and brimstone, a dramatic display of consequences for moral decay. Stories like these weren't just tales of destruction. They were cautionary messages warning societies to adhere to ethical codes and live in harmony with divine laws. They reinforced the idea that human behavior could invite either favor or fury from the gods, shaping cultural norms and guiding moral conduct. What's fascinating is how these myths reflect the values and fears of the societies that told them. By attributing natural disasters to divine intervention, ancient cultures found a way to explain the unexplainable while instilling a sense of accountability. These narratives weren't just about fear, they were about responsibility, urging individuals and communities to uphold moral standards for the greater good. But destruction in these stories often wasn't the end. In many myths, the aftermath of catastrophe paved the way for renewal, a chance to rebuild and start anew. This cyclical theme of destruction and rebirth suggests an underlying optimism, a belief that even in the face of devastation, there's potential for growth and transformation. Even in the face of catastrophe, ancient myths often carried a message of hope, a promise that destruction wasn't the end, but rather a prelude to renewal. Take, for instance, the flood myths we've explored earlier. Whether it was Noah's Ark, the story of Utnapishtim, or Deucalion and Pirha, these tales didn't just end with devastation. They concluded with survivors stepping out into a cleansed world, ready to rebuild and repopulate. It's as if these stories were saying, yes, the waters rose, but they also receded, leaving behind a fresh start. Then there's the Norse concept of Ragnarok, where the world as it's known comes to an end in a fiery cataclysm. Yet, even here, the narrative doesn't stop at destruction. From the ashes, a new world emerges, green and fertile, with the surviving gods and 2 human survivors ready to begin again. This theme of rebirth isn't just about physical renewal, it's about the resilience of life itself, the idea that no matter how dark things get, there's always the potential for a new dawn. These stories served a profound purpose for the people who told them. They weren't just explanations for natural disasters, they were coping mechanisms offering a sense of continuity and hope in the face of chaos. If the world could be destroyed and reborn, then so could their communities, their lives, and their futures. This ancient wisdom still resonates today. In modern times, we talk about resilience and recovery in the aftermath of disasters, echoing the same themes of renewal these myths so powerfully conveyed. But how did ancient societies ensure this renewal? How did they attempt to influence the forces that brought destruction? The answer often lay in rituals practices designed to appease the gods and maintain cosmic balance. These rituals, from sacrifices to prayers, were more than just symbolic gestures. They were a way for people to assert control over the uncontrollable, to seek favor from the divine in hopes of preventing future disasters. And as we'll see, these practices reveal even more about how ancient cultures understood their place in the world. Ancient societies believed that the key to preventing disasters lay in maintaining harmony with the divine. To achieve this, they turned to intricate rituals designed to appease the gods and ensure their favor. These ceremonies were often elaborate, involving sacrifices, prayers, and festivals that reflected the profound relationship between humanity and the forces of nature. Take, for instance, the Aztecs, who believed that Tlaloc, the god of rain, controlled both fertility and destruction. To keep him satisfied and prevent droughts or floods, they offered sacrifices, sometimes even human lives, in the hope of securing his benevolence. Similarly, the Greeks held the Eleusinian Mysteries, a sacred festival dedicated to Demeter, the goddess of agriculture. This ritual was seen as essential for ensuring bountiful harvests and warding off famine. These practices weren't just acts of devotion, they were seen as vital to maintaining cosmic balance. If the gods were angered, the consequences could be catastrophic: floods, earthquakes, or plagues. Through these rituals, people sought to align themselves with the divine will, believing that their actions could influence the natural world. What's fascinating is how deeply these practices were woven into daily life. From the smallest village to the largest city, these rituals were a constant reminder of humanity's fragile place in the universe. They also highlight the way myth and reality were intertwined, with gods and goddesses personifying the natural forces that shaped existence. But while rituals were one way to seek divine favor, there was another group of individuals who played a crucial role in interpreting the will of the gods: prophets and seers, whose visions and predictions guided entire civilizations through uncertain times. Throughout history, prophets and seers have stood as pivotal figures in the tapestry of disaster myths, serving as bridges between the mortal world and the divine. These characters, often gifted with foresight, were tasked with delivering warnings of impending catastrophe, yet their stories are frequently marked by struggle and tragedy. Take Cassandra of Greek mythology, for instance. Blessed by Apollo with the ability to see the future, she was cursed so that no one would believe her prophecies. Her warnings about the fall of Troy went unheeded, and the city fell to ruin. Similarly, biblical prophets like Jeremiah and Isaiah foretold destruction, urging people to change their ways, yet their messages were often met with resistance or outright denial. These figures embody a profound tension, the clash between human free will and the seemingly inexorable will of the gods or the divine. Why do these stories resonate so deeply? Perhaps because they force us to confront our own choices, our tendency to ignore warnings or dismiss signs until it's too late. The tales of prophets and seers remind us of the importance of preparation and vigilance in the face of the unknown. They ask us to consider whether disasters are truly inevitable or if they could be averted by listening to those who see beyond the present. These myths also introduce a compelling question. If fate is already written, what role do our actions play? As we move forward, we'll explore how the concept of fate intertwines with these stories, weaving a thread of inevitability through the fabric of disaster myths. Across cultures, there's a recurring thread in how ancient mythologies frame disasters not as random accidents, but as inevitable events woven into the fabric of existence. These stories often depict catastrophes as bound to fate, guided by prophecies or cosmic cycles that no mortal can escape. One of the most striking examples comes from Norse mythology with the concept of Ragnarok, the prophesied end of the world. In this epic tale, gods and giants clash in a final battle, leading to the destruction of the cosmos itself. Yet, even in this chaos, there's a promise of renewal. From the ashes, a new world emerges, carrying the hope of rebirth. This cyclical view of destruction and creation isn't unique to the Norse. In Hindu mythology, the universe undergoes endless cycles of birth, death, and rebirth, guided by the forces of creation, preservation, and destruction, embodied by deities like Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. These myths reflect a profound understanding of chaos as an inseparable part of existence. Disasters aren't seen as punishments or anomalies, but as natural phases in the larger cosmic order. This perspective offered ancient societies a way to make sense of the uncontrollable. By accepting that chaos was inevitable, they could cultivate resilience and find meaning even in the face of loss. It's a worldview that resonates deeply, one that acknowledges the fragility of life while also celebrating the possibility of renewal. Stories like Ragnarok or the Hindu cycles of creation and destruction remind us that ancient cultures didn't just fear disasters, they embraced them as part of a greater narrative. This acceptance wasn't passive resignation but a source of strength. It allowed people to face the unknown with courage, knowing that even in the darkest moments, there was the promise of something new on the horizon. And within this framework of inevitability, heroes often emerged figures who stood against the tide of destruction, offering hope and guidance in the face of chaos. When disasters struck in ancient myths, it wasn't just the gods who took action. Heroes often stepped up, showcasing humanity's resilience and resourcefulness. Take the story of Deucalion and Pyrrha from Greek mythology. When Zeus sent a catastrophic flood to wipe out humanity, this couple survived by building an ark reminiscent of Noah's tale. But their story doesn't end there. After the waters receded, they repopulated the earth by throwing stones over their shoulders, which transformed into people. This myth isn't just about survival, it's about renewal and the enduring spirit of humankind. Then there's Yu the Great from Chinese mythology, a hero who was given the monumental task of taming the floods that ravaged the land. Unlike his father, who tried to control the waters with dams and failed, Yu took a different approach. He spent over a decade digging canals and redirecting rivers, working tirelessly to ensure the land could thrive again. His success wasn't just about physical labor, it was a testament to perseverance, adaptability, and the power of learning from past mistakes. Zeus' story became a symbol of leadership and ingenuity, showing that even the most overwhelming challenges could be overcome with dedication and innovation. These hero myths do more than entertain, they inspire. They remind us that even in the face of disaster, human creativity and determination can lead to survival and rebirth. Whether it's building an ark or rerouting rivers, the heroes of these stories embody traits that resonate across cultures and generations: courage, resilience, and the ability to adapt. But heroes aren't the only ones shaping these ancient narratives. Women, too, played pivotal roles in disaster myths, often stepping into roles of wisdom, leadership, and sacrifice. Their stories add another layer to how ancient cultures understood and responded to the forces of nature. Women often play a profound yet underappreciated role in myths surrounding disasters and catastrophes. Across cultures, they emerge not just as passive figures but as active forces of restoration and balance. Take Isis, one of Egyptian mythology's most revered goddesses. After the chaos wrought by Set's betrayal and the murder of Osiris, it was Isis who pieced together the fragments of her husband's body, restoring order and ensuring the continuity of life. Her actions symbolize not only resilience but also the nurturing essence often attributed to femininity in these narratives. Similarly, in the biblical flood story, while Noah is the central figure, his wife's role, though less documented, is pivotal. She stands as a silent yet steadfast presence, embodying the strength and endurance required to survive and rebuild in the aftermath of destruction. These stories challenge the traditional view of women as bystanders, instead positioning them as essential agents of renewal and stability. They offer a counterbalance to the often male-dominated portrayals of power in disaster myths, providing alternative perspectives that celebrate the restorative and life-affirming qualities of femininity. As we delve deeper into these narratives, we begin to see how ancient cultures wove complex roles for women into their understanding of the world's upheavals. This leads us to another fascinating layer of mythology: the role of nature spirits, those ethereal beings who embody the forces of the natural world and often serve as mediators between humanity and the environment. Across cultures, nature spirits and elemental forces have long been seen as the unseen hands shaping the world around us. These beings, often tied to specific elements like water, air, or fire, were believed to wield immense power, both nurturing and devastating. Take the Greek nymphs, for example. These ethereal beings were thought to inhabit forests, rivers, and mountains, embodying the very essence of nature. In myths, they could bestow life-giving waters or unleash torrential floods, depending on their mood. Similarly, in Slavic folklore, the Rusalki, water spirits often depicted as mysterious women, were said to guard rivers and lakes. They could bring rain to nourish crops or summon storms to destroy them. These stories paint a vivid picture of how ancient societies viewed nature as a force that was both generous and unpredictable, a duality that inspired both awe and fear. What's fascinating is how these myths reflect a profound respect for the natural world. Unlike modern humans, who often see themselves as separate from or even above nature, ancient civilizations understood their place within it. Nature spirits weren't just characters in stories, they were reminders of humanity's dependence on the environment. A river nymph's wrath or a forest spirit's blessing wasn't just a tale, it was a lesson in humility and coexistence. These myths taught that the natural world was not something to be conquered but something to be revered, a source of life that could also bring destruction. This deep respect for nature's power also paved the way for another layer of myth, those tied to celestial events. Just as spirits controlled the elements, the heavens were believed to hold their own mysteries and forces. The next chapter of these ancient stories shifts our gaze upward, exploring how eclipses, comets, and other celestial phenomena were interpreted as signs from the gods, often foretelling great changes or disasters on Earth. Throughout history, celestial events have captivated the human imagination, often sparking fear and wonder in equal measure. Eclipses, comets, and meteor showers were rarely seen as mere natural phenomena. Instead, they were interpreted as powerful omens, signaling impending doom or divine disfavor. Take the Aztecs, for example, who viewed solar eclipses as a moment of crisis. They believed the sun, a vital source of life, was under attack, and without intervention, the world could plunge into darkness forever. To appease the gods, they performed rituals, hoping to restore balance and prevent catastrophe. Similarly, ancient Chinese mythology tells the story of the 10 suns, celestial beings who took turns crossing the sky. When all 10 suns appeared at once, the earth scorched under their combined heat, threatening all life. The hero Yi, with his bow and arrows, saved humanity by shooting down 9 of the suns, leaving only one to illuminate the world. This myth not only explained the dangers of extreme heat, but also highlighted the fragile relationship between the heavens and the earth. These stories reveal how ancient cultures sought to make sense of the cosmos. Without scientific explanations, they turned to mythology to understand the unpredictable and often terrifying events they witnessed in the sky. The heavens were seen as deeply connected to life on Earth, a vast, mysterious force that could bring both blessings and destruction. This belief in the interconnectedness of the celestial and the terrestrial wasn't limited to the skies above. Just as the heavens held sway over the earth, the underworld played its own crucial role in shaping the natural world. And it's here, in the realm of the dead, that we find another layer of mythology dedicated to explaining the forces that shape our existence. Throughout history, the Earth's most violent upheavals, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and other catastrophic events, were often personified by the gods and spirits of the underworld. These deities, ruling over the unseen world beneath our feet, became symbols of the Earth's raw, untamed power. Take Hades, for instance, the Greek god of the underworld. While he's often remembered as the ruler of the dead, Hades was also deeply connected to the Earth's seismic activity. The ancient Greeks believed that when the ground shook, it was Hades himself stirring in his realm, his movements causing the very Earth to tremble. This association wasn't just about fear, it was a way to make sense of the unpredictable and often devastating forces of nature. In Hawaiian mythology, Pele, the goddess of volcanoes, embodies this same duality of creation and destruction. Known as both a fierce and nurturing figure, Pele's volcanic eruptions were seen as expressions of her fiery temperament. Yet they also brought new land into existence, reshaping the islands over time. The stories of Pele remind us that destruction and renewal often go hand in hand, a theme that resonated deeply with ancient cultures. These deities weren't just feared, they were revered as the guardians of life's cyclical nature, balancing chaos with the promise of rebirth. What's fascinating is how these myths reflect humanity's attempt to understand the unseen forces at work beneath the surface. Earthquakes and volcanic eruptions were tangible manifestations of a world that was otherwise hidden, a world ruled by gods and spirits who wielded immense power. By assigning these events to deities like Hades and Pele, ancient societies could personify the incomprehensible, transforming fear into a narrative that made the world feel more manageable. As we explore these stories, it's clear that the connection between underworld deities and natural disasters wasn't just about explaining the unexplainable. It was also a way to express humanity's relationship with the Earth itself, a relationship filled with awe, respect, and a touch of trepidation. This theme of the Earth's destructive power flows naturally into another aspect of mythology, the role of creation myths in explaining how disasters shaped the world as we know it. Ancient cultures often saw creation and destruction as two sides of the same coin. In many creation myths, the world doesn't simply emerge in a peaceful, orderly fashion. It's born out of chaos, violence, and upheaval. Take the Babylonian Enuma Elish, for example. This epic tale describes a cosmic battle between the god Marduk and the primordial goddess Tiamat, representing chaos itself. Marduk defeats Tiamat, splitting her body to form the sky and the earth. Here, destruction isn't just a random act, it's the very foundation of creation. Without chaos, there can be no order. In a similar vein, the Maori creation myth tells of Ranginui, the Sky Father, and Papatuanuku, the Earth Mother, who were once locked in a tight embrace, leaving their children trapped in darkness. To create space for life, their children tear them apart, separating the sky from the earth. This act of separation is both violent and necessary, a recurring theme in myths across cultures. Disasters, in this context, aren't just calamities, they're part of a larger cosmic cycle of destruction and renewal. These stories offer a profound sense of meaning in the face of chaos. By framing disasters as essential to the natural order, ancient mythologies provide a way to understand and even accept the unpredictable forces of nature. They remind us that destruction often paves the way for new beginnings, a concept that resonates even in the modern world. As captivating as these myths are, their survival owes much to the power of oral tradition. Stories like these were passed down through generations, adapting and evolving along the way. The role of oral storytelling in preserving disaster myths is a fascinating topic in itself, one that we'll dive into next. The power of spoken word has always held a unique place in human history, and nowhere is this more evident than in the way ancient societies preserved their tales of natural disasters and catastrophic events. Before the written word became widespread, oral tradition was the lifeblood of storytelling. It wasn't just entertainment, it was a vital means of passing down knowledge, warnings, and wisdom from one generation to the next. Think about it, every time a story was told, it carried the weight of collective memory, shaped by the voices of countless storytellers who added their own experiences and perspectives. This is how disaster myths were kept alive, evolving over centuries to reflect the fears, hopes, and realities of the communities that told them. In many ancient cultures, storytellers weren't just entertainers, they were keepers of history. They used vivid imagery, rhythm, and repetition to make these tales unforgettable. For instance, a story about a great flood or a volcanic eruption wasn't just a recollection of an event. It was a lesson about survival, morality, or the consequences of human actions. These stories were often adapted to fit the local environment, making them more relatable and impactful. A coastal community might emphasize the destructive power of the sea, while a society near a volcano might focus on the fiery wrath of the gods. This adaptability ensured that these myths remained relevant even as societies changed. But what's truly remarkable is how these stories survived. Without written records, oral tradition relied on memory and performance. Myths were retold at gatherings, rituals, and festivals, embedding them deeply into the cultural fabric. Over time, they became more than just stories, they became part of a community's identity. This is why, even today, we can trace echoes of these ancient tales in our modern myths and legends. The oral tradition didn't just preserve these stories, it gave them a life of their own, ensuring they endured long after the societies that created them had faded into history. As we explore these ancient narratives, it's impossible to ignore the role of art and symbolism in bringing these myths to life. Visual representations, from cave paintings to intricate carvings, often complemented oral storytelling, adding layers of meaning and emotion to these tales. And that's where our journey takes us next, into the world of ancient art and the symbolic language of disaster myths. Throughout history, art has been one of humanity's most powerful tools for storytelling. When it comes to ancient myths about disasters and catastrophes, visual representations weren't just decorative. They were profound ways to preserve and interpret these stories. Take the Mayan codices, for instance. These intricate manuscripts weren't just records of daily life. They were filled with vivid imagery that depicted floods, droughts, and other calamities. For the Maya, these weren't mere illustrations, they were sacred narratives, capturing the gods' wrath and the fragile balance between humans and nature. Similarly, Greek pottery often showcased scenes of floods and other natural disasters, tying these events to the actions of deities like Poseidon or Zeus. These depictions weren't just artistic choices, they were cultural commentary. By portraying disasters as divine retribution, these artworks reinforced the belief that human behavior could shape the natural world. They served as both warnings and reminders, teaching lessons about morality, humility, and the consequences of hubris. But art wasn't just about fear or punishment. It also played a role in commemoration and healing. When societies faced overwhelming losses from natural disasters, their art became a way to honor those who suffered and to process collective trauma. The visual retelling of these myths helped communities make sense of the chaos, transforming fear into something tangible and ultimately survivable. What's fascinating is how these ancient forms of storytelling resonate even today. The symbols and imagery used in these myths continue to inspire modern interpretations, showing how art remains a timeless bridge between the past and the present. As we move forward, we'll explore how these ancient stories are being reimagined in our contemporary world, proving that the power of myth is as enduring as the disasters they once sought to explain. Ancient disaster myths are far from being relics of the past. In fact, they've found new life in modern culture, shaping everything from best-selling novels to blockbuster films. Take the enduring flood myth, for example. This story, present in cultures from Mesopotamia to the Americas, has been reimagined in contemporary works like Margaret Atwood's The Year of the Flood. Here, the ancient concept of a deluge punishing humanity is transformed into a cautionary tale about environmental collapse, a theme that resonates deeply in today's climate-conscious world. Then there's the Norse myth of Ragnarok, the apocalyptic battle that ends the world. This tale has been brought to life in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where it serves as a backdrop for epic battles and personal redemption arcs. While the Marvel version takes creative liberties, it still captures the essence of the original myth, the inevitability of destruction and the hope for renewal. These modern retellings show how ancient disaster myths continue to captivate us, offering a lens through which we can explore our own fears and aspirations. What's fascinating is how these stories remain relevant even in an age dominated by science and technology. They remind us that, despite our advancements, we're still grappling with the same fundamental questions about survival, resilience, and our place in the natural world. Whether it's through literature, film, or other forms of media, these myths continue to echo across time, adapting to the concerns of each generation. But as we reinterpret these ancient tales, a new perspective emerges, one shaped by modern science. With tools like geology, archaeology, and climate science, we're beginning to uncover the real-world events that may have inspired these myths. From volcanic eruptions to tsunamis, the disasters our ancestors once attributed to divine wrath now have scientific explanations. This doesn't diminish the power of the myths. Instead, it deepens our understanding of how they came to be and why they endure. As we delve deeper into the stories of ancient civilizations, it's fascinating to see how modern science has begun to illuminate the truths hidden within their myths. Take, for instance, the widespread flood stories found in cultures from Mesopotamia to the Americas. For centuries, these tales were seen as purely symbolic or moral lessons. But geological evidence, like traces of massive flooding in the Black Sea region around 7,000 years ago, suggests these legends might have roots in real, catastrophic events. It's a remarkable thought that the same floods which shaped the land could also have inspired the stories passed down through generations. Volcanic eruptions offer another striking example. The ancient Greeks spoke of the underworld, ruled by Hades, as a place of fire and brimstone. This imagery takes on a new dimension when we consider the eruption of Thora, a volcano that devastated the Minoan civilization around 1600 BC. The sheer power of the event, massive explosions, ash clouds darkening the sky, could easily have been interpreted as the wrath of gods or the opening of a fiery underworld. Science doesn't disprove these myths. Instead, it provides a lens through which we can understand how ancient people made sense of the terrifying forces around them. What's truly compelling is how science and myth can coexist, each offering a unique perspective on the natural world. Myths give us insight into how our ancestors understood and narrated their experiences, while science helps us uncover the physical events that may have inspired those narratives. Together, they create a richer, more layered understanding of both history and nature. This interplay reminds us that myths aren't just fanciful stories, they're a testament to humanity's enduring quest to make sense of the world, even in the face of the unknown. As we explore this connection further, it's hard not to marvel at the enduring legacy of these ancient tales. They've survived millennia, evolving yet retaining their core essence, and continue to shape how we view the world today. The next step in our journey will take us into the lasting impact of these myths, how they've influenced art, culture, and even modern storytelling, proving that their power to captivate and inspire remains as strong as ever. Throughout history, ancient disaster myths have done more than just explain the unexplainable. They've woven themselves into the very fabric of our cultural identity. These stories, born from the need to understand chaos, have transcended their origins to influence art, literature, and even the way we prepare for disasters today. Think about the paintings of floods, the epic tales of survival, or the symbolic rebirth found in religious texts. They all trace back to these ancient narratives. They're not just relics of the past, they're living traditions that continue to shape how we perceive and respond to the world around us. Take, for example, the story of Noah's Ark. Beyond its religious significance, it's a universal symbol of resilience and renewal. Architects and urban planners often draw inspiration from such tales when designing flood-resistant cities, embedding the lessons of these myths into modern infrastructure. Similarly, the Greek myth of Pandora's box serves as a cautionary tale about curiosity and consequence, one that resonates in discussions about technological advancements and their unforeseen impacts. These stories provide a framework for understanding the complexities of our world, offering both wisdom and warning. But the influence of disaster myths goes deeper than practical applications. They remind us of our shared humanity, connecting us across time and culture. When we hear a myth about a great flood or a volcanic eruption, we're not just learning about ancient fears, we're tapping into a collective consciousness that spans generations. These narratives help us process modern disasters, offering a sense of continuity and perspective in the face of the unknown. They teach us that, no matter how advanced we become, we're still grappling with the same fundamental questions about life, loss, and survival. As we wrap up this exploration, it's clear that these ancient myths are more than just stories. They're a testament to our enduring need to make sense of the world. From their origins in oral traditions to their modern-day echoes, they've shaped how we think, create, and endure. They remind us that, in the face of disaster, we're all part of a larger, timeless story, one that continues to unfold with each passing generation. As we look back on the tales of gods, heroes, and the forces of nature, It's clear that ancient mythologies served as more than just stories. They were frameworks for understanding the world. From the wrath of Poseidon conjuring storms to the fiery breath of dragons symbolizing volcanic eruptions, these narratives offered early civilizations a way to make sense of the chaos around them. They weren't just explanations, they were tools for coping, healing, and finding hope in the aftermath of disaster. At their core, these myths carried themes of renewal and resilience, reminding people that even in the face of devastation, life could rebuild and flourish once more. What's truly remarkable is how these ancient stories continue to resonate today. In a world where natural disasters still challenge us, the human need to find meaning and connection remains unchanged. We may no longer attribute earthquakes to the stomping of giants or floods to the anger of deities, but we still look to stories to help us process loss, inspire courage, and envision a better future. Myths, in their timeless way, remind us that even in the darkest moments, there's a seed of hope waiting to grow. As the philosopher Joseph Campbell once said, "Myths are public dreams, dreams are private myths." These ancient tales are not just relics of the past, they are mirrors reflecting our shared humanity and our enduring quest to understand the world around us. They invite us to explore the ways we, too, navigate the unpredictable forces of nature and the challenges they bring. If these stories have sparked your curiosity, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What myths resonate with you? How do you see their themes playing out in our modern world? Share your reflections in the comments below. And if you're passionate about exploring more tales from mythology and history, be sure to subscribe for more. Together, let's keep uncovering the wisdom of the past and seeing how it shapes our present. Thanks for joining me on this journey through the myths that shape the world and continue to shape us.